Hello, I'm Jon Birdsong, and I'm excited to be here. Compliments of Enchanted Vineyards. I understand there's approximately 175 membership boxes that go out each month. And with that, this month, they actually included a praying watercolor set, a little bit of watercolor paper, and with that, we are going to do a watercolor today. I'm hoping that you guys will get involved in that process. You have to watch for the glare on my head. If I duck my head, squint your eyes, please. The things that we provided is a praying watercolor set. And this is what they call a half pan set. Some of you will care less one way or the other, but you're going to get an oval set, which is a little more paint, a little easier to work with. It comes with a really nice brush, and we're going to do this whole painting with this single brush. I want you to experiment a little bit. So we're going to play with the scratch paper that you got. What I really need to do first is explain to you that you got the praying set, you got the watercolor paper, you need to supply a few things yourself. First of all, you need a place to paint. You're probably not going to have a drawing table, but you do have maybe a table in the house that's flat. You need also a bowl of water, and it needs to be a fairly open bowl of water. You can buy these at the dollar store for almost nothing, and they're deep enough to where you can get a lot of work done without having to change your water. But I don't know, you just need a wide open bowl. Sometimes in my classes, people show up with a bowl with a opening about like that. You do not need that. You need a box of Kleenex or tissue papers, because if you need to do something with that, it's right there and handy. Go to your paper towels, fold you up a paper towel and have it available, because when you dip a watercolor brush into the water to change colors, you hit the bottom of the bowl, and when it comes up clean, it's still full of water. And for a small painting particularly, that sometimes may be too much. So you blot it just a couple of times on the towel material. So those are important to have. Also, if you've got an old toothbrush, have that available. We'll be using a toothbrush at the very end of the painting to do some splatter with. A lot of fun. The praying set comes this is already one that's been used. And the very first thing before you paint, you're going to need to take your brush, put a little bit of water on each color. This dissolves the dryness so that you can instantly get color. And I've got to explain to you, if you have fun with this, and by the way, if you're not a person that wants to paint, you've never painted before, this whole program is based on a beginner instruction kind of thing. And if you don't want to do it, I guarantee your kids at home would love it, all the way down to an elementary school level. And what I'm going to do today, anyone can accomplish that from that level to however old you are. So you get the paint ready to go in watercolor. And again, if you're an experienced painter, this sounds kind of repetitious, but you have to take water, you put the paint on the brush, you use this lid as your palette, your mixing area. And then we're going to do a few things with this brush so you understand how it works. I'm going to go away from yellow, though. I'm going to take a dark color so you can see it. A little purple. We don't use purple a lot, so that's a good one we can waste. If you use the brush sideways and smear, you can paint things that are big, solid. If you want to do something dotty, you just raise the brush slightly and you just smash around to get a dotty effect, like that. And the nice thing about this brush, and used to praying did not have a quality brush like this, that's about the best you could get. You can't make thin lines with this brush, so we're trying to make everything happen with one brush. There's going to be some time where you're going to take the brush, you're going to load it up, you're going to roll the brush a little bit in a clean spot to get some of the paint out, and you're going to turn that brush more this way, and with that, now, one thing I do, this is just my way of doing it. If I hold this brush up like that, I'm not going to get a consistent skinny line. But if I keep my hand closer to the ferrule, that's this part right here, and clamp my fingers together, sometimes I just rest my finger on the canvas or the table rather, not the canvas. And I can actually do really, I mean, this brush is pretty spectacular. You know, I own a brush that costs $7 or $8 that just does nothing but skinny lines, and this one does the job. So, like that little dotty thing right there, we can come in and put a little bush in there, and we have, no, not really, a tree. So I want you to play with this before you start the painting. Understand the brush, and again, what I said was, if I clean that brush like this and I come up and I put it to the paper, I don't know if you can see that in the picture since it's kind of dirty clear. It's real puddly. So a lot of times you clean the brush, take just a little of the water out, and then you can smash around and it'll work out just fine. Okay? So that's the practice part. Now then, it's the I can do it part. I'm going to make this simple enough and beginnerish enough that you should have success. And that's the whole idea of this. The Enchanted Vineyards wants you to have fun. I want you to have fun. So, remember I said something about the tissues? I've got all this real dirty paint right in my way. I'm going to take the tissue, wipe that off a little bit if I need a little water, so I can clean a spot real quickly. You can throw it on the floor or have a trash can, it'd be real nice. All right, are you ready to paint? We're going to do a floral, and that floral is going to be very simple. It's going to be very impressionistic. I don't want you to think in terms of roses and daisies and things of that sort. I just want you to think about some shapes of some sort, the flowery shapes. We're going to put 2 flowers in, some vegetation, and then maybe some sticky things, as I call it, to fill up the space. So here's how we start. I'm going to use, my flowers today are going to be yellow. Yours can be blue. It can be any color that you choose it to be. But I'm going to take yellow, put it on my palette, a little touch orange so it's not just straight yellow, but more yellow. And I'm going to put a flower right here. Now watch this closely. Smash around, smash around. That's one leaf. I mean petal, pardon me. Got to use the right terminology here. If it gets too hard edgy, you can clean your brush, take a touch of the water out, and just touch that a little bit, and it softens the edge. It makes it even a lighter value. In other words, more water, light value, more paint, darker value, or color if you're not used to those terms. So I'm going to come down here a little bit, smear a little bit. And this is, I'm going to take that little petal right off the canvas, like so. What a beautiful flower. Oh, you don't think so? Well, okay, I understand why. Doesn't look much like one, does it? Smear a little orange in that while it's still wet, so you have a couple of interesting values, lights and darks, so to speak. That's flower number 1. Flower number 2, come back to the yellows mostly. I'm going to put it down here lower. I'm just taking the brush, I'm loading it up, and smashing around, thinking in terms of one petal in a sense, but not 20 petals. Little petal over here, little paint, little touch of orange to the yellow. I'm using that side of the brush that I was telling you about. Just smash around a little bit. I mean, you've got to have years of experience to do such a quality flower petal. I'm here to tell you. My wife tells me not to be funny, but I'm not very funny. So there's my flowers to begin with. I need that to dry a little bit, so I'm going to leave it alone. I'm going to move over to, I've got this yellow sitting here already on the palette. I'm going to add a little green to it. Whoop, too much green. In watercolor, it's a transparent material. Therefore, if you put dark colors down, you can't put light colors back on top of it. So if you're going to do a leaf and you want it to be a light, medium, and a dark, you got to put the lights in first, then the mediums, then the darks. So more yellow to the green will let me go smear, smear. Maybe a little smear up here. And the good thing about this is when you start to paint, you can stop the video after and restudy kind of my smearing action for what that's worth. I'm going to put some green down in here. I kind of covered up my orange, which is the petal, which is kind of bad. Now then, I'm probably going to have to make this leaf kind of go over that. If I were in the studio and this was a normal condition, I'd cheat in watercolor and use white paint, and I can correct that. But in this position where we're doing pure watercolor, we can't cheat. Gonna kind of go up here toward the top just a little bit. You can make it a little bit like a leaf, not just smeary. It doesn't have to be as smeary as the petals or the flowers' petals need to be. Now then, I can take a little more green, maybe a little touch of that blue that's right next to the green, and I can kind of smear it toward the bottom while this is still a little bit wet. Put some in here, make this darker down toward the bottom. I can take a little bit more blue, a little drier paint. Less water will help you get darker also, by the way. Watery, it looks really good for a few minutes, and then it disappears on you when it dries. Now, my composition right now is bothering me because it looks like I have wings. My flowers are going to be able to fly off on me there. So I'm going to break this up. I'm going to make this petal a little stronger here, more weight off to the right side. I'm going to take a brown, no, that's purple. I'm going to go to the brown, maybe a little red in the brown. Pretty watery, so I'm going to sort of, in my mind, think, can with some lines here, I take the eye away from all of this? I'm not sure I can. It's kind of powerful right now. Just a few little lines like that. You'll see later if that works or not. Sometimes it does, sometimes it doesn't. I'm going to come back with a little bit of dry orange, or just straight out of the pigment, not mixing on the palette. I'm putting just a little more color on a few of those little petals, just because the color was disappearing on me. Just smear a little bit more color in there. I can't correct that down there, remember? That problem I had there. Okay. I still don't like the wings up here. I just touched my paint, well, twice. See those two big dots? That's because I had too much water and I've been careless. Now that hit, what that's going to do is going to burn through and make a hole. So I need to smear it if it's wet, or if it's already dry and you do that, you can take your Kleenex and daub it a little bit. But you don't want to drop a big drop of water and leave it on the canvas. We need to make us feel like this is a flower, so I'm going to take a dark color. I think I'm going to go with this purpley blue color. And I'm going to kind of come around the bottom area here of this. This is kind of dry now. It's not totally dry. And by the way, I may have to stop and dry once in a while to get caught up. If I do, I'm going to cheat a little bit with my hair dryer. You know I don't need it up here, but I sure do need it down there, okay? And it makes a little bit of noise. Best hair dryer in the world because it turns on by squeezing it. I'd buy 100 of those if I could find someone making them, but nobody does. Never mind. Oh, me. I'm going to come in now with, let's see, I'm going to take my orange, add a little bit of brown to it, and I'm going to touch a couple of corners, clean my brush off, blot it, and just touch that dry paint and smear it into the paint that's already there to give my flowers a little more shape. I'm starting to make this too complicated. So if it seems complicated, right now you're probably saying it can't be too complicated, it's too big a mess. But bear with me. Oh, I can't do that, I forgot. I will lick my brush, I don't blot, but you're not supposed to do that. You know, it might make you lose your hair. You got to be careful. Okay, let's see. Now then, these little sticky things, I'm going to let this dry a little bit. These little sticky things needed to be there would be like a florist that sticks something with twigs in it to make it look better. So I can use the edge of the point of my brush rather, and let some little things, little limbs, little branches, whatever you want to call that, come out from the original lines that I had here. You can't see this, but I know that's going to go away because it looks watery. So I'm going to come back and pick up a little more dry paint. So when I do this, it'll stay. If it gets too dry, by the way, it'll skip. It'll go skip, 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 little dotty shapes. And at that point, you need more moisture. I'm trying to teach you a little stuff as we go, but this should just be more fun and not too much learning details right now. Just slish slosh and have fun. Now, we've got those vegetative things stuck inside something. I don't know, I would call it just sticks and vegetation wherever this flower thing is. I'm also going to come back, put a little more color right here. Well, I didn't want it to be, I wanted a little greener. Drop some green in there. One more time, the green with the blue in it and drier, less water. That when I say drier, I mean less water. Give me just a little darker value in a few places. Maybe I can separate these into two different ones. I'm going to take some red, dry red paint. There's water in the bottom of this little puddle. I'm going to work my brush where I'm getting the dry part. More color, or there's more pigment, less water. And I'm going to do some little dobby-doos, little dots, kind of like little berries maybe. Don't want to overdo this. But I want some stuff going on in those sticks. So those sticks had little berries on them of some sort. If you're a florist, maybe you'll understand that better than I. This flower has really lost its shape, but I think I can bring it back. The center of the flower here, you can tell where it is pretty easily. The center here is facing down. It's like the flower is leaning over this direction and it's covered up with a leaf. So what I'm going to do now, I'm going to take just a second, take my hair dryer, and I'm going to dry this. Because if you make a skinny, thin line and it's wet, that skinny line is going to fuzz out because of the moisture. So we're going to dry where we're going to put thin lines. Then I'm going to come back with, now in watercolor we normally don't use black, but praying sets come with a black. Black by itself is kind of ugly when it dries, so anytime I use black, I put brown with it. Brown and black makes a pretty decent color. Or you can use ultramarine blue and brown and make a great black also. Now this is pretty watery, so I'm going to roll my brush and get some of that paint out. And I'm going to come in and I'm going to accentuate these flowers a little bit. Just a little bit of an outline that's not heavy, and I want it to be loosey-goosey. That's going to go behind that leaf right there. This is going to break up over here and go behind the leaf, but this one's going to be on top of the leaf. And I'm going to put a couple little center lines. I'm not sure what that's called. I'm not a florist. But this makes a little interest to it. Then I'm going to go up to the one up above. Hey, by the way, another thing that's nice is you can turn your paper this way. Some artists like to tape their paper down, and I think that's such a bad thing to do. This one's going to kind of come over like that. This is going to come over, again, a little kind of wavy. Sort of, don't worry if it's just perfect. Just don't get it real heavy. You know, if you bear down hard, if you hold that brush too much on its side, you start off with a line, and when you press down, it does that on you. So you got to keep it up on its end to make the thin lines, okay? Start running out of paint, get a little bit more. Little end part there. Looks a little more like a flower. Let's see if we can help the leaves a little bit. Couple of lines, I'll come through the center of that. Give me some veins to help the viewer think that's a leaf. I really don't care at this point if it looks a whole lot like a leaf, just so it sort of looks like a leaf. That gives me an escape. If I'm not a very good artist, they can say, whoa, it looks kind of like a leaf. A little vein or two. So that looks a little bit more leafy to me. I still don't like my wings, but I'm kind of committed. Sometimes you make a design error that's kind of hard to deal with. All these little dots, I can take that black and I can put a little smash at the bottom of some of them to make them a little more three-dimensional. I realize that's very minimal at this stage of the game, but still. Now, the center of the flower is still kind of open. Clean my brush, blot my brush, think about it a minute. What can I put in there for the center that's bright? Well, there are yellow flowers, but we don't have much red. I'm going to take pure red, and I'm going to work my brush in the corner of that little square to get heavy paint that'll be darker. And I'm just going to put a few dots in there like this. I don't know, just to make it look like whatever those little dots are supposed to be. If I had a little white paint, I could make those things glow a little bit more, but we can't cheat today. We only have the Prang watercolor set. Prang used to come, by the way, many years ago. Well, a number of years ago, they used to come in metal cans, but now they always had white paint. I don't know why they took white paint out. Maybe because most watercolors don't believe in using white paint, because then it becomes a painting called gouache, G-O-U-A-C-H-E. Some information that you could probably care less about knowing. Now then, we can look at this, and any painting, a lot of times, depending on whether it's really realistic or not, has a certain amount of hardness to it. And one way we can soften that hardness is splatter a little bit. I'm kind of a splatter kind of guy. Let me take the hairdryer for a sec. Now I'm going to take my toothbrush, okay? And I'm going to take a dark color first. I've got this black on the palette and I got the blue over here. I'm going to get my brush with just a little water on it. I'm going to smear it around. Get a little more color, smear it around a little bit. Turn it upside down. If you're going to use your forefinger to pull, and you're going to tilt it downward because it shoots the way you aim it. So I can shoot it up that way quite a bit. Clean my brush off, blot it just a little bit. I'm going to get me some of that red and orange. So, this is a 15-minute slish-sloshy kind of painting that you can have fun with. You can become more realistic or do it more realistic, or you can stay really slish-sloshy. This is a 5x7 cut piece of paper. You now, if you love this piece, I do not have anything that'll help you stick it on the refrigerator. But you can go to Hobby Lobby, and even Walmart has these photo frames. And Hobby Lobby, if you watch the 50% off size, you can get some really nice frames for around $4 or $5. It has the glass in it, has everything you need. Walmart right now has some frames in a special. These cost $3 or $4 each. They come with the backing, the glass. This is cut so that all you got to do is put this painting in, put the glass in first, of course, put the backing on. It'll either set up or it even has a thing to hang it, so you have instant gratification as long as you have the frame, and you spend about $3 to $4 maximum on this right here. So look how much better that painting looks when you put it in a frame. But let's say some of it just you really don't like. Well, why not go with a smaller frame? See, this is 4x6. You can buy at Walmart for $4. I mean, pardon me, at Hobby Lobby. And so you can cut some of this out down here if you want to, and make it have more sky or more air, more negative space. Or if it's really bad, you know, you can get a smaller frame. You can cut it and go a different direction. So, you know, you can make a small painting out of the big painting if you've got big flaws, if, in your opinion. Don't call it a big flaw altogether, because there's a good part in it no matter what. But seriously, as a 5x7, you put that on there, forget the mat, because I've saved you 15 bucks having to buy a mat. It's ready to go on the wall, and that now looks pretty good. Looks pretty good. Personal opinion, of course, and I'm prejudiced. No, it's not a great painting, but it's still a lot of fun. I want you to have fun. Praying watercolor sets. Don't go to Walmart and buy Crayola. They're horrible. They won't. The color will not come out. They're good for little 3 or 4 year olds that want to smear some watercolor. You need to buy Praying. Hobby Lobby carries Praying. Walmart sometimes carries Praying. I haven't seen any lately in our stores, but this, I've taught school 31 years. My kids worked with Praying watercolor sets. In college, I did my college work with Praying watercolor sets. That tells you how old I am. But they've been award-winning paintings. Beautiful stuff. This is not a bad paint for a beginner.